Every time you hear the word no, a door closes. But what most people don't realize is that for every door that closes, another opens, but only for those who refuse to be stopped. The problem is, the world teaches us to take rejection personally. From childhood, we're taught that a no means failure. It means you weren't good enough, you weren't strong enough, you didn't qualify. But let's shift the lens for a moment. Let's see what the no really is. It's a recalibration, a redirect, a universal GPS saying wrong street, but still on the right journey. You see, most people never achieve their full potential, not because they don't have the talent, but because they don't know how to handle the no. They let it define their self-worth. They absorb rejection like poison. They begin to believe that rejection is a reflection of who they are rather than a refinement of where they are meant to go. Look at India's journey on the world stage. For decades, it was ignored, sidelined, underestimated. But rejection didn't break India. It built it. Every diplomatic denial, every global insult, every strategic block was turned into fuel. India learned to operate not in reaction, but in strategy. It understood that rejection by the world powers wasn't an ending. It was information. It was feedback. It was proof that its presence was disturbing the comfort of established power. And when your presence shakes the room, the world's first answer will always be no. But India didn't need validation to grow. It chose evolution over approval. In the same way, you must begin to treat rejection as a sacred signal, not a shameful failure. When someone tells you no, whether it's a job you didn't get, a person who walked away, a bank that denied your loan, an opportunity that slipped through your hands, you have two choices. You can crumble and shrink, or you can investigate. What is life trying to tell you? What skill must be sharpened? What belief must be upgraded? You're not a victim of rejection. You're a student of it. Those who become masters of success are those who were once rejected the most, but refused to give up the loudest. They learned that the no is not a wall, it's a mirror, and that mirror reflects where you need to evolve before you reach your next level. Most people think success is about getting to yes, but it's not. Success is about becoming the kind of person who can't be stopped by no. The difference is spiritual, it's mental, it's emotional. People think the big game is out there, in companies, on stages, in global deals. No, the real game is inside your own reaction, because how you respond to a no determines whether you grow or decay. Look at any giant in history, any nation, any leader, any revolutionary thinker. They were told no so many times it would break the average soul. But here's the thing, they weren't average, not because they were born different, but because they responded differently. They used no as a weapon to sharpen their will. India's moment of global humiliation became its turning point. Being told no by powerful nations didn't cripple it. It clarified its path. And that's what rejection is for you, clarity. It shows you where the world thinks you don't belong, so you can choose to prove them wrong not through rage, but through relentless reinvention. No is not a wall you hit. It's a compass. It tells you where you must build your strength. And once you understand this, rejection no longer scares you. It excites you. It becomes a spark. You welcome it. Because you know that the more no you face, the more fire you gather for the yes that will explode your destiny. People say, I can't take another rejection. But that's not true. You've taken worse. You've survived heartbreaks, losses, betrayals, failures you thought would end you. Yet here you are. Rejection didn't destroy you then, and it won't now. What it can do is transform you, if you let it. It can harden your resolve. It can sharpen your focus. It can strip away the laziness that comfort brings and force you into the kind of daily discipline that only the hungry understand. There's a version of you waiting on the other side of the next no. That version is stronger, clearer, more dangerous to the mediocrity that used to define your life. Rejection is not a punishment. It is proof that you are playing at the edge of your current limits, and that's the only place where growth lies. When you stay in your comfort zone, no one rejects you, but nothing evolves. The moment you step out, the world resists you. That resistance is not the problem, it's the test. Will you keep walking? Will you stay the course? Will you believe in your dream even when no one else does? That is where destinies are born. That is where greatness begins. Not in the comfort of applause, but in the quiet of rejection, where only your faith speaks. Only your hunger moves you. Only your fire keeps you alive when everyone says you should quit. India didn't wait for the world to open the door. It built its own, and so can you, because when the no comes, and it will, it's not a sign to stop. It's a signal to rise. What you see in the mirror is not as powerful as what you see in your mind. The most critical perception you will ever shape is not what others think of you, but what you think of yourself. Because the world reacts to you based on how you show up, and how you show up is shaped entirely by your self-image. You may not realize it yet, but you are the architect of your identity. Every thought you repeat, every word you use to describe yourself, every internal belief you carry, it forms the blueprint of your destiny. You cannot rise above the image you hold of yourself. That image is the ceiling of your success or the platform of your elevation. You decide. It's the same story with nations, with movements, with revolutions. Why did India rise? Because it stopped identifying itself as a broken, post-colonial nation begging for attention, and started seeing itself as a global force. The shift didn't happen in policies first. It happened in perception. You change the way you see yourself, and the world has no choice but to eventually catch up. That is not philosophy. That is power in motion. If you walk like a victor, think like a leader, speak like a visionary, move like a creator, the environment has to respond. But most people never reach that state because they allow the world to tell them who they are instead of deciding for themselves. They mirror their fears, not their potential. Your self-perception is the thermostat of your life. You may turn up your goals, your plans, your ambitions, but if your internal temperature is set to self-doubt, nothing changes. You'll sabotage opportunities, delay decisions, question your worth, and settle for less, not because life demands it, but because your self-image permits it. You become what you believe you are. That's not metaphor. That's neurological programming. Your mind is always trying to match your outer life with your inner identity. If you believe you're a failure deep down, success will feel foreign, and your subconscious will quietly drag you back to behaviors, choices, and patterns that feel familiar, even if they're destructive. That's why changing your life doesn't start with new habits. It starts with a new self-definition. You must upgrade your internal identity. You must see yourself as powerful before you become powerful. You must treat yourself with respect before the world mirrors that respect. That's why affirmations matter, not as fluffy words, but as neurological conditioning. When you speak power into yourself, when you repeat truth over emotion, when you declare who you are becoming even before the evidence shows up, you're not lying to yourself. You're realigning your brain with the highest version of you. And once that version becomes familiar, your decisions follow, your actions follow, your results follow. It's not magic, it's physics. Energy aligns with intention. Think about this. Why is it that two people with the same skill, same background, same resources can have completely different outcomes? One rises, the other remains stuck. It's not luck. It's not even hard work. It's self-image. The one who rises refuses to see limits, refuses to identify with the past, refuses to be defined by anyone else's voice. They see greatness in the mirror before the world ever does. And that belief becomes their strategy, their faith becomes their fuel. They move from a place of identity, not insecurity. That's the power you must tap into. You don't need the world's permission to become great. You need your own. Even nations reflect this truth. The world didn't take India seriously for decades, but India didn't wait for approval. It shifted how it saw itself. It moved with confidence, not apology. It began acting like a superpower long before anyone called it one, and now the world watches closely. The same principle applies to your life. Stop waiting for someone to validate you. Stop waiting for signs that you're ready. Begin now to think like the version of you who's already achieved it, the version that doesn't settle, the version that leads, the version that operates from vision, not victimhood. Your self-image is either your engine or your anchor. And here's the truth. Your current life is the echo of your past self-perception. Everything you have or don't have is connected to how you saw yourself months or years ago. If you want to change your future, stop focusing on the results. Focus on the root. The root is your identity. Upgrade that, and the results will chase you. Most people try to change the fruit without changing the root. They want a better body, more money, stronger relationships. But they never shift the core belief that says, I'm not good enough, or I always fail. That internal script runs the whole show. Rewrite the script, and you rewrite your life. Start visualizing. Start speaking power. Start holding yourself to the standard of who you want to become. Don't say, one day I'll be confident. Say, I am growing into unstoppable confidence now. Don't say, I'm not lucky like others. Say, everything I need is already within me and I choose to unlock it daily. This is not fake positivity, it's alignment. It's choosing identity over insecurity, choosing destiny over doubt. And once your self-perception shifts, your posture shifts, your energy shifts, your decisions become bolder, your relationships change. You start attracting better because you've become better. You no longer settle for less because you no longer believe you deserve less. That's the real transformation. That's the shift that creates unstoppable people. Every feeling you have is energy, energy in motion. That's all emotion really is, emotion. It's not fixed. It's not permanent. It's not truth. It's movement. But most people don't know how to read or redirect that movement. So when they feel anger, fear, sadness, or doubt, they believe that's who they are. They say, I am afraid, or I am broken, instead of saying, I am experiencing fear, or I am moving through pain. They become trapped inside their emotions instead of learning to guide them. The reality is, if you don't learn to control your emotions will control your actions, your choices, your relationships, and ultimately your destiny. The strongest people are not those who feel nothing. The strongest are the ones who feel everything, but choose not to be ruled by it. That kind of inner mastery isn't natural, it's trained, it's developed, and like any training, it begins with awareness. You have to become aware of how quickly your state can shift based on a conversation, a piece of news, a memory, a failure. 1 minute you're motivated, the next minute you're hopeless. 1 moment you're certain, the next you're questioning everything. That fluctuation doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. But to grow, you must move from being emotionally reactive to being emotionally intentional. And that begins when you take ownership of your state. You are not your feelings. You are the observer of your feelings, and because you are the observer, you have the power to choose what to do with them. You can feel disappointment and still move forward. You can feel fear and still take the leap. You can feel sad and still show up powerfully. This is what separates achievers from dreamers. Most people wait until they feel good to take action. Winners act themselves into the right feeling. They don't let emotions dictate the mission. They let the mission shape the emotion. When you operate this way, you're no longer a slave to the weather of your moods. You become the climate. You become the one setting the atmosphere, not being controlled by it. Look at how India has managed its emotional response on the world stage. There have been provocations, betrayals, moments of national grief and humiliation. But the leadership didn't react from raw emotion. It chose poise over panic, precision over retaliation. That kind of restraint comes from emotional intelligence on a national scale. And if a country can do that, imagine what happens when an individual does. Imagine living your life not based on mood swings, but based on mission clarity. Imagine being so grounded in your vision that temporary emotions can't knock you off course. That's emotional power. That's emotional wealth. And it's available to anyone who chooses it, but to build it, you have to stop giving emotions permission to become identities. Stop saying I'm depressed, and start saying I'm experiencing a low state right now, but I am moving through it. That language shift alone can save your future. Because the moment you label an emotion as your identity, you shrink your potential to match it. If you believe sadness is who you are, you won't even try to feel joy. If you believe anxiety defines you, you won't fight for peace. But when you realize that emotions are signals, not shackles, you become free. You start using emotions as data, as messengers, not dictators. And just like energy, emotions can be redirected. Movement changes mood. If you're in a negative emotional loop, get up, move your body, change your environment, speak out loud, breathe differently. The fastest way to change an emotion is to change your physiology. The mind and body are connected. You can't slouch your way into confidence. You can't whisper your way into power. You can't stay in darkness and expect light to come find you. You have to interrupt the pattern, get loud, get big, get bold. Not because you feel like it, but because you choose to shift your state. That decision alone creates momentum. The truth is, every master you admire, whether it's a leader, entrepreneur, creator, or visionary, has learned to dominate their emotional space. They feel fear, but they walk into rooms with boldness. They feel exhausted, but they show up anyway. They feel insecure, but they lead with courage, and with time the feelings catch up, because your nervous system can be trained. You can teach your brain that emotion is not danger, that sadness is not the end, that anxiety is not paralysis. You teach it by how you act in the face of it. Every time you act against negative emotion, you weaken its hold. Every time you submit to it, you feed its power. You will always feel something. That's the nature of being alive. But you get to decide what feeling is in the driver's seat. If fear is driving, your life becomes small. If doubt is driving, your dreams shrink. If anger is driving, your relationships suffer. But if faith, gratitude, discipline, and purpose take the wheel, everything begins to shift. You stop chasing temporary highs and start building permanent strength. Because you're no longer addicted to feeling good, you're committed to being great. That's the transition that separates those who wish for change from those who create it. It's not about never feeling low. It's about never letting low feelings make your decisions. Most people live their entire lives waiting for permission, waiting for the perfect timing, waiting for validation, waiting for someone to rescue them. But greatness doesn't wait. It leads, it creates, it envisions a future so clearly that the present circumstances become irrelevant. That's the difference between those who live life as victims and those who live as visionaries. A victim looks at their current reality and says, "This is why I can't." A visionary looks at the same reality and says, "This is why I must." One is ruled by excuses, the other by purpose. One gives up power, the other claims it. And what decides which one you become is not talent, it's not background, it's not privilege, it's vision. When you live without vision, you become a prisoner of your surroundings. You start believing that what's happening around you is more powerful than what's happening within you. You react to circumstances instead of rising above them. You chase comfort instead of building courage. You make decisions from fear, not from faith. And slowly, your dreams begin to die, not because they weren't possible, but because you didn't believe they were necessary. Without vision, you will always settle for less, not because you want to, but because you forget that more is even possible. Vision is the internal fire that refuses to let you settle. It whispers to you in the middle of your worst days and says, "There is more." And you must protect that whisper, because the world will try to drown it out. The world wants you to believe that your role is to survive, not to lead, not to disrupt, not to rise. The world will tell you that you're too young, too old, too broken, too late, too far behind. But vision doesn't care about timelines. Vision doesn't measure reality. It rewrites it. Think about every breakthrough in history, every invention, every revolution, every movement. They didn't begin with facts. They began with belief. Someone had to see what didn't yet exist. Someone had to believe what no one else could see. That's the power of vision. It bends the world to match what lives in your mind. Look at India's journey. The world saw a third world country with poverty, conflict, and political instability, but India saw itself differently. It saw innovation, it saw resilience, it saw potential, and that inner vision, not outer praise, is what fueled its rise. India didn't wait for the world to approve. It started building from within, piece by piece, strategy by strategy, investment by investment. It began to operate as a future superpower. And that's how transformation works. First in identity, then in behavior, then in results. It's always inside out. The world had no choice but to catch up to what India had already decided to become. You must do the same. No one is coming to hand you your future. You must build it in the dark, when no one claps for you, when no one believes in you, when you have nothing but that quiet vision in your heart that won't let you sleep. That's how leaders are born, not from applause, but from conviction. Not from comfort, but from clarity. Visionaries are dangerous to systems of control because they refuse to be told what their ceiling is. They set their own limits. They break their own boundaries. They don't wait for opportunity. They create it. And when rejection comes, when failure shows up, when people laugh or criticize or walk away, they don't fold, they refocus, because their mission is bigger than their emotions. Most people aren't held back by circumstances. They're held back by a lack of vision. They're stuck in survival mode, just trying to get by, just trying to make it through the week. But survival mode is a prison that tricks you into believing it's safe. Vision pulls you out of that trap. It forces you to level up. It demands action. It doesn't allow you to waste your life scrolling, complaining, avoiding, or numbing yourself with distractions. Vision asks for sacrifice. It calls for discipline. It dares you to believe that your life can be about something bigger than fear. But only you can choose to answer that call. You don't need to see the whole path. You just need to see the next step, and trust that your vision will guide you through the fog. The more you walk with vision, the clearer the road becomes. You begin to notice doors you never saw, resources you never accessed, people who suddenly show up, not because you're lucky, but because you're aligned. Aligned with a purpose that's bigger than your problems. When you live with vision, you stop fighting small battles. You stop arguing over petty things. You stop needing everyone to understand, because your eyes are set on something higher, something deeper, something worth the struggle. People who lack vision get distracted easily. They chase everything. They doubt everything. They quit often. But people with vision are dangerous. They're focused. They're patient. They're relentless. They don't beg for attention. They command it through results, and that's who you must become. Not a victim of what happened, but a visionary of what's possible. You must be willing to see beyond your current income, your current surroundings, your current pain. You must close your eyes to the chaos and open your heart to the calling, because the most powerful thing a human being can do is choose a vision and refuse to stop until it becomes reality. Before any empire is built, before any war is won, before any success story is told, there is a battle that happens silently and invisibly. It's the battle within. That battle is more brutal than anything the outside world can throw at you, because it's not just about circumstances, obstacles, or enemies. It's about self, doubt, fear, laziness, procrastination, insecurity, and limiting beliefs. And most people lose that battle long before life ever has a chance to test them externally. You cannot conquer anything outside of you until you learn to conquer everything within you. Your mindset is the battlefield. Your thoughts are your soldiers, and your beliefs are either building your victory or ensuring your defeat. People talk about goals. They talk about discipline. They talk about ambition. But none of that means anything if the voice in your head keeps whispering that you're not enough. You can study all the strategies. You can read all the books. But if you don't address the war that happens in your own mind, you'll never break through. Because you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your inner conditioning. You perform at the level your subconscious allows. That's why real success doesn't start with hustle, it starts with healing. You have to tear out the roots of the lies you've believed about yourself and plant something new. Think about how many dreams have been buried not because someone failed, but because they never believed they could begin. Think of how many people are living average lives, not because they lack skill or opportunity, but because they never won the inner war. They let fear of judgment stop them. They let the past define them. They let comfort distract them. They let rejection break them. They let comparison paralyze them. But your life will change the moment you decide that those inner enemies no longer get a vote. The moment you declare that your peace, your power, and your potential are more valuable than your excuses. This is exactly how India had to rise. Before it could stand against the world's strongest powers, it had to confront its own inner divisions, doubts, and dysfunctions. It had to build unity, vision, confidence, and clarity within its borders before it could project power beyond them. The same principle applies to individuals. Before you can lead others, you must learn to lead yourself. Before you can build something great, you must become something great. The foundation of that greatness is not talent or luck. It's mental fortitude, it's emotional stability, it's spiritual alignment. And all of that begins with winning the private battles no one sees. There are mornings you will wake up and want to quit. There are moments you will feel like you're behind, like you're failing, like it's not working. And in those moments, your mind will try to convince you to shrink, to stay small, to avoid pain, to wait. That's the inner war, and the only way to win it is to respond with action, with truth, with a relentless commitment to the vision you chose. You don't win the inner war by running from it. You win by walking straight into the fire of discomfort and proving to yourself that fear will not dictate your future. Every time you take a step forward when your emotions say stop, you weaken the grip of that inner resistance. But here's the hard truth. This battle doesn't end. The voices will return. The fear will try to sneak back in. The laziness will show up disguised as rest. The doubt will whisper, maybe this isn't for you. That's why consistency is more powerful than motivation. Motivation fades, inspiration is temporary, but discipline is what wins wars. You have to show up even when it hurts, even when it's boring, even when no one sees you. That's where greatness is built. In the daily decision to not give in to the lesser version of yourself. And the more battles you win inside, the stronger you become outside. You begin to walk with confidence that can't be faked. You speak with authority that doesn't come from ego. It comes from alignment. People feel your energy before they hear your words because your presence is built on something deeper than hype. It's built on truth, on integrity, on consistency. You don't have to prove yourself when you've already done the inner work. The results speak, the posture speaks, the energy speaks. You become a living example of what's possible when someone refuses to be defeated by their own doubt. Everyone wants the trophy, but few are willing to fight the invisible battles that earn it. Everyone wants the breakthrough, but not the breakdown that precedes it. You have to be willing to get uncomfortable, to do the work in silence, to build when no one's watching, to heal what no one claps for, to overcome the patterns that keep dragging you back into cycles of failure. That's the price, and those who are willing to pay it, quietly, daily, consistently, they're the ones who rise. They're the ones who don't need to shout about success, because their life becomes the evidence. When you wake up and don't feel like doing it, but you do it anyway, that's victory. When your past tries to define you and you say, not anymore, that's victory. When the pain shows up and you say, let's go, that's victory. When the world underestimates you and you keep showing up, quiet, focused, powerful, that's how the real battles are won. Not with noise, not with excuses, not with perfection, but with persistence, with unshakable focus. With a decision that says, no matter what's happening outside of me, nothing will stop what I've already settled within me. That's the real war, and when you win that, everything else bows to you.